Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Mortis FM, a Star Wars podcast. I am one of the guys, one of the boys, Grayson, and with me is my best friend who's a little under the weather, but I love him, and he's my baby boy, and he's so beautiful and so charismatic. His name is Cole. Cole, introduce yourself.
I think you got all of the things to say. Really, no more introduction necessary after that. Yeah, I'm sick. I've got the big sick. I don't know if we can even say it because I feel like sometimes it gets filtered out of certain things. I'm collecting variants. I added a new one to my collection. This is the third time I have been sick, so Grayson is going to be most of the energy in this episode, but as much as I should be sleeping right now, the show must go on, and so here I am.
Here he is. Yeah, we actually were going to get this episode out a little bit sooner, but then the day we were going to record, internet was not being very cooperative. And then the following day, Cole was diagnosed with his sickness and has been recovering. So we're pushing through. He's pushing through, and we're just gonna go through the probably the biggest episode of Ahsoka thus far, being Ahsoka episode 4. It's been about 5 days since it's released, so there's been a lot to simmer and speculate on. So I think we're going to follow a very similar format as what we did the last episode, which was kind of Cole's idea. So shout out to Cole for that.
Oh, hey, thanks,
we're just
man.
Hey, no problem, man. I love you. And we're going to go through
what?
And we're going to go through just beat by beat through the episode, talking about specific moments that we enjoyed or what have you. So I also have a list of notes of specific things I want to talk about, but yeah, we'll just jump right into it. So from what I remember, I've seen the episode twice. The episode starts off with Sabine and Ahsoka still on the surface of Cetos.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to but I think Huang says he's trying to do some rewiring so that they can get a message out to Hera, because right now I believe with the storms and presumably the Purrgil and everything, they cannot get a signal out to Hera, so they're trying to get some backup there. And then we have a little bit of a discussion between Ahsoka and Sabine, where they're basically saying, Ahsoka implies that, if they can't get this map, if they can't beat Baylan and Morgan and the rest of the baddies to Thrawn, but they have the option to at least prevent them from getting to it, it'd be better for nobody to get to where they're at than let the bad guys get the upper hand. And so, Sabine, she's not like just super vocally against this, but you can definitely tell that she is not like about that. Like Ahsoka is kind of doing the more, she says, sometimes we have to, I'm thinking of Aunt May from Spider-Man 2, but I know that's like not the reference, but it's, you compared it to Anakin from Attack of the Clones. He's like, sometimes we must do what is requested of us.
Yeah.
But what the specific line that Ahsoka says is, sometimes we have to do what's right regardless of our personal feelings. That's what she says. Which is a very, I'd say beyond even just Star Wars. I mentioned Spider-Man is a pretty prominent theme, but I really enjoyed this dialogue. I think it definitely shows where Ahsoka's headspace is at versus where Sabine's headspace is at, which once we get later into the episode, we will see ultimately what drives her decisions. But she says at the very end, she's like, Sabine, can I count on you? She says, I can.
Yeah.
The Seinfeld music.
Yeah, so when Ahsoka is like, if they end up getting the map or whatever, it has to be destroyed. And Sabine doesn't say, I'm not going to do that. Instead, she just says that's not going to happen. So she just kind of avoids really answering the question, which,
right.
as soon as I saw that, as soon as I heard that response, I was like, oh yeah, I don't think she could do it. And I don't blame her either. Specifically, we'll talk about that later on, as when we get to that point. Yeah, I thought that was a fun little interaction because they both already stated their intentions, and you can kind of see that even though they're now working together, they still are apart. So we have not finished that arc where they are truly a master and apprentice working together just yet.
Yeah, Sabine is still, we always like to say that, like, with master and apprentices, like, it's, people often think, like, well, obviously it's the apprentice learning everything. But no, like, the best master and apprentice relationships are when both are learning equally in different ways.
They teach each other. I think that, you're absolutely right. I think that that's probably the reason why one of the potential ways that you can actually become a Jedi Master is by training at least 2 Padawans in Legends anyway. And so it kind of says that in order to really be a master, you two need to learn from a teaching experience. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, being a knight is more so like, showing that you can handle your own, right? But then becoming a master is really learning a lot of these intricacies of not only the Force, but what it is to be a Jedi and to be, a protector of the greater good. So you can definitely see, like, that Sabine is a little bit more emotionally driven versus Ahsoka right now is kind of in her Batman mode, as I want to call it. Like, and people have I think we've talked about this last episode, have been kind of criticizing her for being like, oh, she's too stoic and blah blah blah. And I'm like, I don't blame her though. Like, she's on a mission. Like, she's been through a lot when you really look at the legacy of her character. Like, she's not this 14-year-old girl that's just being taken underneath the wing of Anakin. She's not happy-go-lucky. Like, she's a woman who has had virtually all odds against her. So there's a lot of character dissection. We'll get a lot into that probably when speculating on the next episode. But yeah, so that's kind of how we start off. Well, and then we see...
I was just going to say, like, basically in response to that, like, if you're upset about Ahsoka not being happy-go-lucky, sorry that someone who grew up as a child soldier and then was hunted down for most of her later life and then had to fight her master like, isn't all what's the word for it, like, roses and daisies, like, just happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
right, yeah.
She has a lot of growing to do, and we do see that. Like, her and Sabine, like, crack a joke, and, like, she smiles very briefly. So that was a good moment for her. Like, you could kind of see it finally starting to come through.
Yeah, they're getting, I think even Huang says, like, they're kind of getting a little bit more in their flow again.
Yeah.
And like in episode 3, like, they are a very unconventional master and apprentice duo, but, like, this episode, I love seeing them work together, which leads me kind of into the next point, which is a little bit of jumping the gun. I'm gonna do this and then kind of hook back around. So Huang is repairing the ship from the exterior, and gets attacked by another HK droid. And I think people, to be honest, I forgot this too, but people have been, like, showing a very strong reaction to Huang, like, basically, like, having the moves, and I'm like, but I was like, oh, this doesn't surprise me. Like, I'm glad they kept it consistent, because if you, in the Clone Wars, like, he's kind of crazy. Like, he's, like, doing like backflips and stuff. Like, they do, like, the whole, like, circus routine or whatever with, like, the younglings. I'm like, Huang is for all intents and purposes, like, he is, like, the sensei of droids, right? Like, thousands of years old. Like,
dude,
does not surprise me that he's just gonna just rock'em sock'em with some other droids. Like
he is the oldest. Well, I was about to say living, but he's the oldest operable relic, really, of the Jedi Order. He was specifically designed to bring younglings into the fold, like as their first steps of constructing their lightsabers and stuff like that. Like, dude, of course he's gonna know a couple moves. They already established that he knows lightsaber combat training techniques in the previous episode. I don't understand why people are mad about that. And here's the thing too, like, it's not like he immediately laid out that HK droid. Like, it took a bit. Now, I will say, the HK models have certainly degraded in quality over the past millennia or so. But they're not to be messed around with. They're literally assassin droids. And seeing him pack a wallop was fun. Like, I thought
he's got those little extra arms that pop out of his shoulders as well. So he's got like
it's just, there's no reason to be mad about it. Like, why are you mad?
Oh, I wasn't, sorry to correct. I don't think I've seen any, unless you have. I haven't seen anybody be mad about it. I've just seen people been like, whoa, what? Like, Huyang can do all this. And
I've seen people be a little mad.
Really?
About it. Yeah,
that's so dumb.
There's this one guy on Twitter that he was like, "Why is Huyang fighting like that's just so dumb?" And I was like, "Dude, why are you mad? Why are you mad?
Why are you mad about that, dude? Oh my gosh,
people find a reason to be mad at anything."
No, dude, it's crazy. And we'll get into it later, but you know what? I'll go ahead and say it now while it's fresh on my mind. Like, I've had some friends tell me that have maybe a little bit more of a notable status in the Star Wars community, but they've been telling me how, dude, listen, and I say this with they didn't make this clear that I love Andor and I know you love Andor, but there are some people out there that are the Andor diehards, won't let anybody enjoy anything else out of Star Wars. And so my friend was telling me how she posted on a TikTok or whatever, saying that Ahsoka is some of the best live action content since the prequels. Not an incorrect statement. It doesn't mean it is the best. It doesn't mean that there's not been anything good since then. It's just, I would agree, Ahsoka on a quality of standard has been some of the best quote traditional Star Wars since the prequels.
I agree.
But of course people are like, bro, there's lightsabers in this show and the music sucks and Ahsoka and Sabine suck and it's woke and Andor's so much better because they talk to people. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh man, dude, you can enjoy both. I thoroughly enjoy Andor because it is a story of the everyman, of people who are struggling on these backwater planets, fighting against the Empire. They're very melodramatic and slow burn. Ahsoka is not that. We can see this is the episode that is prime example that this is Star Wars back in its mystical space opera form. This is original trilogy. It's space wizards and stuff we don't understand, and big bombastic lightsaber battles, which in this episode are amazing, by the way, and I'm sure we will get more into it. It's just, they're not mutually exclusive. You can enjoy all of it, quit coming after people.
Here's the thing, man. It's like trying to compare chocolate cake with spaghetti.
Yeah, exactly.
Both of them are good. I love both of those foods. How could I possibly try to compare and contrast between the two?
Yes.
They're two completely different things, but they're both good. It's not that we don't have to. People keep trying to narrow down Star Wars into just this one entity that A is good and B is the worst. It started since the original trilogy days. I bet you there were even people that were A New Hope. Well, at the time it was called Star Wars. They're like, dude, Star Wars is the best. Empire Strikes Back sucks. I bet you there were people that
people were like that
that
with Return of the Jedi. People, because the Ewoks hated Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, and it's just this failure to accept differentiation. They just want the same thing. And like I feel like people applauded Andor because it was just a lot different than what we were used to, but like it doesn't mean that Ahsoka is any less deserving of praise. It's
right.
Like I think, as I told you, Andor is like a fantastic twist on how we perceive Star Wars in media, and then Ahsoka is like a kind of return to roots classic space opera adventure.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I just, again, why are you mad, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
just get off of Twitter and stop being mad. That's it.
What is? I'm drawing a blank on the Qui-Gon line. Like the ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
Literally.
People need to get off their high horse, man. Anyway, so I just needed to put that out there that, just because you think Andor is the best thing ever does not mean that Ahsoka just sucks or is, just not, Tony Gilroy literally said with Andor, to really put the nail in the coffin here, he said that this is not, he said, and I don't think he meant this in a bad way, he's like, but this is the least Star Wars project.
Yeah.
What I think he meant by that, granted, I don't know Tony Gilroy personally, but I'm going to assume that the genre and the vision of Andor was not to emulate the original trilogy, was not to emulate the space opera and the mysticism and the fantasy. It was supposed to be something different. And if we want to make Star Wars this living, breathing world, I love that. But Ahsoka is directly ordained by George Lucas's apprentice. Mm-hmm. And I say this with confidence because Jon Favreau literally said that Dave is George Lucas's apprentice. Mm-hmm. There you go. Watch the documentary on it. This is this is the grand scope. And so it's just different. And you can enjoy them because of their differences. It's one of the main reasons why I love Solo, because it's this, just like this, and people are like, oh, it's so mid or whatever. I don't care. It's very underworld driven. And yeah, there's no lightsabers in it, and I love that for it because there's one lightsaber, okay, but anyway, so that's a whole other discussion. But can we just stop tearing people down for enjoying one thing? I personally love when someone has a different thing that they love more than me. Of course, I'm if they like the same things as me, I'm going to be able to discuss with them. But I digress.
No, I mean, listen, man, I completely agree. I once met someone that told me that he did not like Andor, and I asked why, and he said that there was no plot. And
gotta disagree, but all right.
And I just kind of said, all right. I mean, if you are at that level of media illiteracy, I am not. I have no desire to speak. But here's the thing: I'm not gonna stop him from thinking that Andor has no plot.
Right? Yeah.
I think that's stupid, but I'm not going to stop him from thinking that, and that's okay. So
yeah. I get that Andor has a much more, a much slower and methodical plot. And granted, we have not even seen the full show yet. There's still a whole other season that has to be put into play.
Oh, thank God for that.
Yeah, can't wait. But anyway, that's a whole discussion for Andor. Back to Ahsoka, which we both have been loving. So Huyang, he starts getting attacked by these droids. Ahsoka and Sabine are quickly alerted and go X Games mode on these droids and take them out with relative ease. But it's not just droids. There are also these thugs that we saw. I think they're the same ones I believe you pointed out, or somebody did. I recognize are the same ones from Mando Season 2 that Morgan has in her little compound on Corvus, I believe is the planet.
Yeah.
But I realized upon watching it the second time that Ahsoka has no hesitancy with killing these guys. She does not. And I mean, granted, in Mando Season 2, she didn't care either. But I don't know if like I don't. I'm not taking that as a complaint because I'd really have to go back and look at Ahsoka's track record. Well, okay, in Clone Wars she did chop off the 3 heads of Mandalorians.
Yeah,
so
we love Ahsoka in this house.
Yep.
But I can't decide, and I don't think she can decide either on whether or not she wants to kill people.
I get
really
reasoning
think
for not
just,
killing the clones in season 7. Like it makes sense; those are the people she served with. But then I thought that kind of took that as a sign of like, okay, like she's. I guess she just basically. This is a whole other discussion for something else, but I'm like, I guess she doesn't really care about killing people. Like
it's weird though because she when at the Siege of Mandalore, like when she was first,
she didn't kill any of those Mandalorians.
She didn't kill any of them. She just chopped their guns and hit one of the dude's jetpacks and basically hung on to him as he was flying around. Now he probably died because his jetpack was busted. In fact, I feel like he just flew off and exploded.
Yeah, that's probably what happened.
But like you said, she's in her Batman phase where it's like, I didn't kill him, the Fall did,
No, but in this episode, she literally she pulls one down, or Sabine pulls one with her grappling hook down to the ground, and Ahsoka just does a quick uppercut and just slices his throat, and he's done. And I
think she uses one of them as a human shield,
yeah.
she went like Jedi Survivor on that guy.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I mean, great, but I still have confusion because didn't Dave Filoni wrote Siege of Mandalore, right?
Yeah.
And he's also writing this. So either someone is interfering with his insatiable bloodlust or he's changing his mind.
I guess so. There's plenty of examples of her not killing and killing, so I'm just gonna say it's just she's on for any gamers out there, very hyper specific reference. She's playing Dishonored but can't decide if she wants to go high chaos or low chaos.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, maybe this person will die, but this guy, he said something about his daughter. Maybe I won't kill him.
It's mission by mission. She's achievement hunting, right? Siege of Mandalore, she had to go low chaos, but I don't know. I guess we can kind of think of it as situational because with the Mandalorians, right? She had an easy with the Mandalorians in Siege of Mandalore, she had an easy out, I guess. All she needed to do was just get a ride out of there. She didn't necessarily need to kill them. But on Cetos, these guys are literally hunting her down.
Yeah.
And I guess it is kind of like a situational type of thing.
Do they kill? When she was with the Wookiees in Clone Wars, when she meets Chewbacca and all of them, and she's being hunted for sport with the other Jedi, do they kill the Trandoshans?
I don't know. I honestly don't remember what happens to the
remember.
Trandoshans.
Yeah, that was a good arc though. So that's one of my favorites. But
yeah,
I guess it's situational. There we go. Case closed. Yeah. So then there's a line that kind of connecting back to our very first conversation after discussing about Andor and whatnot. Huang, they're going off. They're going to the Henge, as one of the droids later in the episode calls it. Very accurate. Huang tells them both to stay together.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that.
Yeah. They don't do that.
Which it's not like they're intentionally just trying to go against Huang, but he says something that I like a lot. He's like, Ahsoka, Sabine, stay together. You always were better that way. We're better off that way. Yeah. And it's a little some foreshadowing there. They do get split up, but so anyway, then we backtrack to we get to see Hera and Jason assemble a small crew of a squadron of X-wings. I think it's a ragtag version of Phoenix Squadron.
Yeah.
Which I love the callback to. So she does, I guess. Is it that they managed to that Huang fixes the transmission and then and Hera goes out to get him, or does she just know? Does she just remember?
I think she just knew, because I don't think he was able to reach her until the end of the episode.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I guess she just takes it as like I'm not waiting on a call, or I'm not waiting on a report. I'm going.
Yeah, like they were talking to her before they reached what was it, the Denab system? Is that where CTOS is?
I think so.
But there was their communications were getting jammed, and so they blipped out, and that's why they couldn't reach her.
Yeah,
makes more sense that he was able to reach her when she got into the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he finally manages to get to work. Okay, cool. So then, yeah, she breaks away from the fleet and assembles some X-wing pilots. One of them being the Phil Coulson of the Star Wars universe,
for real,
Carson Teva. By the way, that actor is playing. Did you know he's playing Uncle Iroh?
I do know that. I'm actually kind of excited for that.
Yeah, I like Carson Teva a lot. He's a cool guy. I'm drawing a blank on the actor's name, but he's a really cool guy. But yeah, so he comes along, and there's a little Easter egg I have to point out. I'm legally obligated to. I'm not really, but I just want to. Some eagle-eyed fans noticed I tried to notice it myself. It is like you have to put it in editing software. There's literally no way you can do it manually on Disney Plus for like how quickly it happens. Yeah. But there's a shot of the cockpit of the Ghost, which so good to see that ship again. Right before Hera walks on screen, in the pilot seat on the left, right behind the controls is a picture of Kanan, which is technically the first time we have seen him in live action. You don't. It's a very, very fuzzy look because of how far away it is, which is probably intentional because I don't think we'll see him in live action, and I'm okay with that.
You want to know something additional about that too?
Yeah.
Someone found out that was a picture of Freddie Prinze Jr.
Really?
Yeah, that was like, it was just a picture of him that was just kind of, that was just kind of photoshopped and doctored a little bit.
I saw something about that, but I was like, I thought it was just someone grasping at straws. Like I was just like, okay, like there was someone's like, yeah, it is Freddie Prinze Jr. And I was like, maybe, but you saying that makes me feel like it was more legit, because I saw that picture as well. It's like an older picture of him that they kind of photoshopped, but yeah, Freddie Prinze Jr. unfortunately has said that he's kind of done with that role, which I kind of commend. I've always told Cole and many of my other friends that Kanan is that lightning in a bottle character, where like the only real stories that I would like of him would be, during his time pre-Rebels and post-Bad Batch of, like, what he was up to. But we do get a book about that, and even though they changed Order 66 for him, the comics kind of get into what he was up to. So, but it's a really sweet little acknowledgement, because we've gotten virtually little acknowledgement of Kanan, which, like, I mean, makes sense. Like, I don't expect him to be, like, 5 years later just constantly being like, man, I miss Kanan so much, like, it's fine. But, like, the scene in the last episode of Jason being like, I want to be a Jedi, and Hera just, the sorrow that you visibly see on her face when she's like, yeah, I know you do. Like, it hits me like a truck. And then just, and then the picture that I did think of one thing though, in episode 3 when they're training, Sabine is like, how am I supposed to see with this thing? Blah, blah, blah. Like, as they're training, I'm like, bro, all right. Like, Kanan was literally blind. Like, he trained you when he was blind. And I'm like, I know Sabine at this point has not unlocked her potential in the Force, so it does make sense for her to be like, how do you expect me to see? But, like, it would have been at least, like, it would have made sense for her to be like, oh, yeah, like, I see what you're doing. Okay, like, I get it,
Yeah, she's...
Like, kind of just being like, okay.
Yeah, I feel like if she was in a better position to, like, she might be... more willing to learn, or at least not get as frustrated so quickly.
Right. I think, and we see a lot of those frustrations on what Balin ultimately reveals later on. But yeah, so then I think at this point, after all of the stuff that we've gone through, the title opens up. And then from this point onward, until kind of the end of the episode, it's a lot of action, and it's a lot of really good action.
It's just good. Like, it's just consistently good.
Like, I've seen people, and I'm like, I don't know if it's just me, and I know it's not, but there are these, like, you know, here at Mortis FM as well, here in this house, we love Star Wars, and that means we love the prequels. And I love the prequel lightsaber fights a lot. Yeah. But there is also something extremely charming about the original trilogy fights, okay? There are some of these, like, prequel, like, diehards out there that just refuse, like, nothing, like, these fights that we've seen in, you know, Ahsoka or Mando or whatever, they're like, oh, it's not as, like, they're just not as good as the prequel fights, you know? And I'm like, first of all, with the fights in this episode, I just disagree personally. That's just me, other than maybe Duel of the Fates. Like, the reason those fights were choreographed the way they were, and I believe I love the fights in the prequels, but, like, this is the Jedi in their, like, absolute prime, not, like, maybe High Republic prime, but, like, in terms of, like, this is the Jedi on their A game, right? With, like, masterclass training or whatever. But also, like, there's a lot of flair, a lot of additional flair that's in those fights, and so it's a lot of just, like, really quick hits that aren't going for, like, lethal blows, right? To me, I really love the fights, especially in this show, because they feel like a beautiful blend of the fast-paced prequel fights, but the weighted attacks of the original trilogy and the sequels. Like, personally, I agree. Like, I like the idea that, like, I don't want, you know, I don't like my lightsabers to be like flashlights where they just have no weight to them whatsoever, and you're just like the like quick like flick of a wrist, and it's already like you can revert it 180 degrees. Like, I like the physicality of these sabers, and so, like, you know, say what you will about the sequels, I personally, like, love some of, like, certain fights in the sequels, especially like the fight in the forest in The Force Awakens, because Kylo has that really heavy broadsword saber, and he's going for these really big swings, whereas Rey has faster attacks, you know, but, like, she's a little smaller, so she is struggling with these. Like, she's not Ahsoka, she's not all these other, like, Jedi that have been trained in their prime. So anyway, these Ahsoka fights go incredibly hard. The fight between both, well, I guess there's technically 3 different lightsaber fights that happen. We get the fight between, let's start off with the fight between, I think we got to talk about it. We got to address it. The fight between Ahsoka and Marok, all right? Let's just talk on the fight spectacle. I loved it. I thought it was amazing.
I think finally and ironically, the lightsaber movements of Marok, like, as an Inquisitor, I think finally translated really well. I personally, like, as much as I enjoy Star Wars Rebels, and, you know, like, the Inquisitors being established into the canon, I think that they're really cool, but I always felt like the lightsaber spinny thing, like, just with how they use their sabers, right. I always kind of thought that it just felt very unrefined, and they just kind of misunderstood the true meaning of the lightsaber, which sounds really nerdy of me to say. They don't get the true meaning of the lightsaber. But it always felt like a little underutilized, I guess. But like, Marok, even though he loses, and he loses like bad, he's got the moves, you know. Like, I don't know, you know, his story, but you can definitely tell why Morgan had, you know, him around,
right?
Because I mean, he was good.
Yeah, he was one of the, probably, I would argue, one of the most competent Inquisitors that we have seen, probably up there with I would say Trilla. Second sister, like maybe the seventh sister as well, but like in terms of holding his own, like he's one of, like we've said before, he's one of the few that has held his own against Ahsoka. Ultimately, it was that cliche Inquisitor or helicopter move that was his downfall. Isn't it always we made it. We said something. We were making a joke like the other day. I was just like, bro, it's like I'm convinced that like Vader or Palpatine gave like a mandate saying that like, once they wanted to, like, they were like, all right, like, we need to kind of get rid of the Inquisitors. Like, it's getting a little out of hand. They're like, well, we can't just, like, kill them all. Like, they'll uprise against this. It's like, what if we just tell them that, like, the helicopter move is, like, the way to go, Like, just use the helicopter move every time. You'll never lose. When, in fact, it's just the complete opposite. Like, if you use that move, you will lose every time.
Vader's holding, like, seminars for the Inquisitors, and he's like, guys, try spinning. It's a good trick.
They're like, oh, yeah, let's take that down. And Palpatine's in the background, like,
well, and I think, like, honestly, I really love that I got this thought just now, is that it's kind of an allegory for the dark side in general. You think that this crazy spinning move that literally, you turn your lightsaber into just this propelling blade that is basically impossible to get through. And it's just kind of a taunt of power without needing to be trained, I guess. Any Joe Schmo can take an Inquisitor lightsaber and press that button and just have it spin and just move forward with it, and then you just turn into a meat grinder for a lightsaber. It's like an easy win. But then you pair that up against Ahsoka, who has been trained and tested, and like I'm just because he's my favorite character, I'm going to attribute that move to Obi-Wan. Because Obi-Wan fought Grievous time and time again, and the lightsaber spinny move has always been very Grievous. So I feel like maybe Ahsoka kind of adopted that from him.
Well, also the ultimate, the killing blow on Marok, I would say is very similar to Obi-Wan and Maul. That one strike to just take him out, I think what beautifully encapsulates, what you're saying is something that Luke says in a different context to Palpatine. Your overconfidence is your weakness.
Literally. I mean,
it's literally like as soon as they click that button, they're like, like you can even see it in Marok's like visible like stature change. He's cocky. He's like, oh yeah, I've got you now. Like you're done. And Ahsoka's like, not quite. Like, like she ultimately is able to keep herself composed. It's the same thing that Obi-Wan does. Same thing that Ahsoka does. I mean, it happens time and time again. Like the way of the dark side is overconfidence, and it ultimately leads to their folly. So yeah. I mean, to be honest, like when it happened, I wasn't that upset. I think it was a really cool fight.
Yeah.
It does leave a little to be desired, I think, or questions.
So before this episode came out, I started a little note document of just things that I wanted to discuss in the episode. Yep. And I did not think that Marok would be juked in this episode. So I wrote down, I said, preparing for the inevitability that Marok may just be a new Boba Fett and we have to accept it. Basically, like, he's nameless, he has few lines, he's got a cool costume, but that's about it. Yeah. Well, when she does this killing blow, he erupts into green mist and falls to the ground. I would like to hear your thoughts about this before I speak mine.
Okay. So I don't know where I had heard this before, but I definitely heard rumblings or rumors. You may have even told this to me, that I did hear that Marok was, from what I understand, his body was not corporeal, or that it was like something that was inhabiting the suit of armor. And I was like, really? I was like, that's what they're gonna go for? That like it was like Night Sister magic that was keeping the armor alive or something like that. And I was like, okay, I kind of believe that because of the way the mist pops out, but I'm also not fully convinced that he's like out for the count yet. I feel like I definitely feel like he is a subject of like necromancy or something like that. Like, that Morgan utilized him like as, and like, resuscitated him. I mean, we literally see the Night Sisters can bring their dead back to life.
Right.
Which is, it's very befitting. So it makes sense to her. But like, I know that the Night Sister corpses can speak, but they kind of feel more like zombies, whereas I feel like Marok felt a little bit more sentient, if that makes sense. A little less like,
yeah, I mean, he didn't speak much, but he had lines. He even had emotions,
Right, yeah, like he was getting frustrated. And so that's really my extent of it. Like, I don't think he's done. I think we will get some answers maybe, but if we don't, I'm okay with that. I feel like you might have a little bit more of a grasp on it than I do, though.
So the first, like, I mean, as soon as I saw that scene, like, you, because we watched it at the same time, you heard me, like, immediately just start theorizing and going, like, oh, wait, maybe it's that.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that, like, what you said is basically like similar to mine. I think that Marok was an Inquisitor that died a long time ago. And Morgan basically brought him back to life, quote unquote life. And he was basically being sustained by Night Sister magic. It's that green mist is very familiar. It's not as vibrantly green as we see in the Clone Wars and Jedi Survivor and stuff like that.
Right.
But I think he is very much like I think he was an Inquisitor that died and was brought back to life for kind of like indentured servitude, because when you see him die and the mist kind of come out of him, he doesn't like deflate. His arms and body just kind of shrink and it looks more decrepit. So if you think about that, if instead of him deflating, him just turning back into a corpse, that is probably what I think it is. Do I think he's coming back? I really doubt it. I would love for him to come back just because he's like, he kind of fits that new Boba Fett role for me where I just think he's cool. But given the fact that Morgan didn't even ask where he was,
she didn't care,
and
left him there.
And that they left him there, I really doubt that he is gonna come back. It would be cool if, like, I don't know, you see that mist kind of like go around for a little bit and then it seeps back into the body. But then they'd have to find, like, the show would have to find another way to get rid of him. It would be kind of funny though if, like, he just looked around and just ran away and got on a ship and flew off.
The Marok spinoff.
Right. Marok, a Star Wars story. But yeah, like, I before we had seen that episode, I had already told you, like, I am preparing for the inevitability that he, is not going to be really anything. And as soon as he died, I was just like, all right, like, cool, there man. The thing is like, I'm not upset by it, because I don't know if it was our last episode or the episode before, I talked to you about the expectations of Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
But I don't think we discussed all of the expectations that the community put on Marok. Like, the same thing every time. Is it Ezra? Is it Starkiller? Is it, the eighth brother, but for some reason he doesn't have 4 fingers anymore? It's just like, people always want to connect stuff, and I think it's fine to just have a new character. Even if they're just meant to be like a red shirt where they get killed off.
Yeah, it is the Star Wars way, for the
it's the Star
cool
Wars
person.
way. Like Marak is one step up from a glup poopo, and I'm okay with that. I think he's great, and I can't wait to not see him again. Because
I think it also doesn't make it as big of a deal is because we have two great villains still alive.
Exactly, and it's not even
with Baylan and Shin.
It's not even relevant to the plot, man. People just want him to be Star Killer or Star Killer 2 Electric Boogaloo. And and it's not relevant. He was just a cool guy that was meant to be struck down and look cool while doing it, and I'm fine with it. I'm still gonna, get a figure of him at some point because I think he's great.
Yeah, he is pretty cool. I think it adds up. I would like to learn a little bit more about him and his, I'm sure there'll be some book or comic about him or something. Yeah, but
I want to know how he
died.
But
I'm not too. Like how he originally died. Yeah. And I'm not mad about it because kind of kicking off of that, we can go to the other two fights. But Shin and Baylan are incredible in this episode.
Oh yeah.
Before we get to the big one, let's talk about Shin and Sabine's little encounter.
Well, for one brief second, right after Ahsoka takes down Marak, Sabine tells Ahsoka to leave and go get the map.
Yeah.
Which Shin says, you will regret that decision. And I think she's talking about just the fact that she's going to regret fighting Shin alone. But Shin, in a strange, twisted way, was right. Because Sabine telling Ahsoka to go enabled Ahsoka to basically split off from her.
Right.
And, them not listen to Huang and split up, so...
Well, I took it when she said that as Ahsoka beating Marak. When she took out Marak, she had this visible shock on her face, she didn't know that was gonna happen. So I guess it's a three-way meaning of you'll regret that, but also she's kind of shook that Ahsoka beat Marak. But
I think I had briefly thought about that. My first instinctive thought, I was did she was she friends with Marak? No, she wasn't. I really doubt that. I think
they were best buddies.
Yeah, I think instead her face reaction was just, "Oh no, I'm gonna have to fight both of them on my own." And then Sabine is just get out of here.
And Shin's say less.
Say less. Right.
Yeah, because Shin, her and Sabine's fight. Shin is lethal, dude. Their fight is really good. I don't. Shin's fighting style and Baylan's when we get to it, just tick all the boxes for me. It's really fast and aggressive. One of the closest that we've seen to more of the prequel style. She's cutting trees and just very heavy blows like her master.
Yeah. She is such Sabine an offensive force.
Yes, and Sabine just cannot keep up. No. But we see in this fight, at one point, I think it's towards the tail end of it. I think Shin is about to attack, and Sabine reaches out, and Shin visibly her shoulder gets pushed back. And when I first saw this, I was did Sabine just use the Force, or was Shin taunting her, making her think that she did? What do you think? Because I'm still confused in this matter.
So I at first when we first saw it, I was like, oh, Sabine did a little push, that's neat. But I actually think that Shin was just instinctively flinching to kind of prepare, because she knows what the Force is. Obviously, right. She knows its uses on people. And so Sabine, a lightsaber wielder who had not shown that she had prowess in the Force in their previous battle, extends her hand, and I feel like Shin just instinctively flinches, expecting to be pushed back. But as soon as she realizes that she wasn't, she turns to Sabine and says, "You have no power." She it was a taunt, but I think it was also an audible epiphany that she just realized that Sabine at this time cannot wield the Force. And I also think it has a lot to do because Star Wars is very intrinsic with its audio design, and every time the Force is used, you always hear kind of like a tension in the air, you know, and you don't hear anything. As far as I can remember, you don't hear anything. So I really feel like it was I just think she flinched.
Yeah. It's 50% of me agrees with you, and then the other half of me is I'm like, I don't know, man. Like it was a very sudden like like that, you know. But I don't know. It's hard to say, and I think we'll get reveals about it. But it was still a really good moment because then Sabine immediately, like, instead of doing like her hand out, she switches it to like the wrist gauntlet and then tries to shoot at her, which is really cool. And then Shin just goes full Batman Arkham and just like smoke
bombs out of there. I think you could also think of it in a cool way where the thing that Sabine wanted to happen, which was to push Shin away, did not happen. But for whatever reason, whether it be that Shin just, expected Sabine to be a Force user, or something else, maybe she felt the Force coming her way, but it didn't actually reach her. So she did flinch because she kind of felt that movement through the Force, but it didn't actually end up happening. So
didn't connect,
maybe that was like a little bit of a tease that, I think Sabine will still get there.
I think so. I feel like, I mean, if they don't, if they finally go the route with like, Sabine just isn't Force sensitive, like, I think I'd be okay with it. But I feel like they're really setting it up that like she's going to get there one way or the other. Yeah. But yeah, so that fight is incredible. But then we get to the big fight with Ahsoka and Baylan. And oh boy, this fight goes crazy. The dialogue is very good, man.
Rest in peace, Ray Stevenson.
Dude, Ray Stevenson as Baylan is just incredible. He's easily one of my new favorite villains, or antagonists. And there's a lot of reasons behind that when we kind of, I guess, break down like the plot of it. But yeah, so Ahsoka shows up and Baylan is waiting there as the coordinates are transmitting to the hyperspace ring.
He put his hood up in between shots. He wanted to look cool.
Yeah, dude, he was totally trying to look all edgy and stuff. But yeah, so then they both kind of unclip their cloaks, and Baylan says that line like, Anakin spoke highly of you, and Ahsoka is immediately like, I don't even know who you are.
He's like, who the hell are you? He never mentioned you, and Baylan's like, everyone in the Order knew about Anakin Skywalker. Few lived to see what he became, I believe.
Yeah, which is like a dope line. It makes you think, how does he know? How does he know what Anakin became? Because at the moment, not that many people know.
What would be really interesting is if we got a, story during the dark times where Vader is hunting Baylan, and Baylan maybe manages to either fend him off or get away, and in that he finds out that Anakin is Vader.
Yeah. Maybe he somehow gets into the temple and is able to see that information. Maybe he was there,
Maybe he was always there. Oh man, that would be tough.
Like, I could easily see him like being one of those Jedi that like he just got away, I don't know. It's really, I feel we will learn the truth, but I say here in my notes that I was like, Baylan is incredibly ambiguous with his very, very meticulous with his backstory. Like even says to Morgan when they're prepping the star chart thing earlier in the episode, he says, he's like, Faith, I lost that a long time ago. And you're like, what are you talking about? I don't know, but I love it. Like, I'm such a sucker for it.
Again, he is just such a good. It just gives me vibes of like a Black Knight, like Oath
Yes.
of Vengeance kind of, or like Oath Broken Paladin, you know?
Yes, that's even better. Yeah.
And I just, you know, it's perfect because he's got the chivalry. He's got the basically he definitely uses the crossguard stance in Jedi Survivor.
Yeah.
And he's just got that vibe all around him. And here's the thing too, like right before they fight, you know, I think he asks Ahsoka, like, do you think that you influenced that leaving Anakin behind? And she's like, well, I'm not here to talk about my past. And then I don't remember if there's anything else, but she draws her lightsaber first. Mm-hmm. And you can immediately see it all over his face. Like, he's disappointed. He's like, I don't want to do this.
She also attacks first. Like, he didn't, like, he's just defending.
Yeah.
Like, if Shin is going after Sabine, Balin's not going after. He's just sitting there just trying to get to his objective. His objective is not to take out Ahsoka or Sabine.
Balin only really starts going buck wild once Ahsoka throws Shin against the wall, which we'll get to that in a second. But about the fight, it starts off pretty quiet. They like size each other up. It's like Obi-Wan versus Maul on Tatooine.
I love when lightsaber fights do that. When the opponents just stare at each other for a while and maybe make some slight movements before finally one of them goes for the attack.
You
it's
observe the other's stance and you kind of like change to adapt. Right. And here's the thing, like, I'm pretty sure, I mean, my memory might be failing me, but Ahsoka changes her stance, I think, maybe 2 or 3 times, but Balin stays the same. Balin doesn't change his.
I think
his
he
stance.
changes it. He only changes it one time when Ahsoka is changing hers. Mm-hmm. He has it kind of like, you know, kind of as that Qui-Gon pose.
Right.
But then at one point she adjusts to kind of go for this like rear pose, and he instead of it being like kind of low to like his, you know, his chest or his hip, he brings it up high to his head.
Yeah.
For like, because I think he's preparing that she's going to attack high, and she does, and he immediately, like, it's just that sizing. Like, I love that. Like, you know, for some nerdy tidbits about Cole and myself, recently we got into like just sword sparring or lightsaber sparring. I made some wooden swords for us because I'm that cool, and so anyway, like, that is a thing that I've noticed that we do, is that like whenever we would like, we would like, you know, I feel like what we would do is we would always do kind of like that Obi-Wan Vader thing where you know we kind of like do like little quick blows, and then we kind of size each other up, and then we really get into like the meat of the attacks.
Man,
that
was so much fun.
Yeah, we've I think for context, like, Cole and I, we don't live close by. We live about 5-6 hours away, so we try to see each other multiple times a year. I think we said that in our very first episode, so it's not often that we get to do that stuff, but it's really fun because Cole is very experienced in VR, and it has made him. He is a very defensive. Like he, when we were doing some of those like blocks and everything, like, I'm like very aggressive, but he is just like, so like, there was some block that he was doing that I was like, bro, how's this guy doing this right now? Like, it's really good.
I spent way too much time in Blade and Sorcery with the Outer Rim mods, just training with lightsabers, and it's a lot of fun. If anybody has VR, check that out. I strongly recommend it.
Yeah, you're an expert at that, and so I just love seeing, you know, fights where they're a little bit more meticulous and things like that. And I mean, it's one of my favorite moments even in the Phantom Menace is when you know, Qui-Gon, and that, you know, there is a barrier, but like Qui-Gon just meditates, right? And he's just waiting for Maul, and then the shield goes up again, and Obi-Wan has to wait, you know, and they have to size each other up, and then they go for the attack. It's really good stuff. Very samurai, very Kurosawa, very OG Lucas, and I'm a big fan. Even Empire Strikes Back, like, Luke and Vader stand there for a second, like, before they actually go for the attacks.
Yeah,
you know?
that, I think that, like, that's a great example, because Vader is never on the offense except for the end. When Luke hits him, which is funny because like, I think he was like Vader did underestimate Luke in that moment, but throughout that fight, Vader's not moving. He just wants to see what Luke can do, which is just great to think about. If you really think about it from Vader's perspective, like Anakin's in there, he's just going like, man, all right, this is my son. I want to see what he can do, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And his goal is not to kill Luke, you know, in that moment. Like, and very similar, Balin's goal is not to kill Ahsoka. He says makes it known that it is regrettable. Vader wasn't trying to kill Luke. He was trying to turn him so they could go up against the Emperor.
Luke drew first.
Right, exactly. Luke Luke shot first. Yeah, like Vader's hand was forced in that matter, and then he forced Luke's hand to come off from his body. But but yeah. So, but Baylan and Ahsoka, I loved that Ahsoka also did not do her two saber stance.
Yes,
she did one saber because I think she knew that there was no way that her ability, like her two sabers, was going to be strong enough. Like, because, you know, you got to think about it from a power perspective of like, if you have one saber in each hand, you're not going to get as much power or leverage out of a swing as you would with one hand. So she gets her, you know, her bigger saber, her main saber out, and she sticks with that kind of that old Ben kind of just like, you know, Luke Skywalker two-handed, like really meticulous strikes and blocking. And it to me, it's just the entire fight is very well done. Baylan is just going for these really strong, heavy attacks. Just like you said, he is like a dark crusader, you know, a dark knight. Boom, boom. Sorry. Anyway, like he's even got the armor to show for it. Like he's just going for very broad, heavy attacks. Like he throws a rock at Ahsoka at one point, and like you can tell there's power behind that swing because she's like struggling to like cut it in half. She has to use her like leg to prop herself up between a rock as he like attacks her. It's cool stuff, man.
And I have to take a moment just to applaud the audio design in that fight.
It's good.
Both of the sabers, especially Baylan's, which, you know, I'm gonna highlight because it's still unique to us, like it's still new. Is just I mean, his lightsaber sound is just so unique. It sounds so visceral. When it clashes against Ahsoka's, it almost sounds like his swings are shattering her sabers. And you can really see that too, not only in like the sparks, but like the fight choreography. Like he's basically just pushing her around the entire time.
Yeah, she's like just barely like, you know, blocking these attacks.
Yeah, and keep in mind, like, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like Ahsoka is one of the best duelists of of the time. And Baylan beat her in that fight.
Beat her pretty bad, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I think she's gonna have this moment where they will fight again, and she'll come back and end up beating him. But
of course,
that's something to say about Baylan, that he ended up beating her, because Ahsoka is really good.
And he wasn't, like you said, wasn't even trying to really, you know, put her down or make her stay down until she throws Shin. Like he was just making sure that she didn't get to the map.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. And I think just in a quick response to what you said earlier, she is using one lightsaber because she kind of guessed that he was going to be a heavy hitter, and I think that shows character growth in a way, because the last time that we know that she fought a heavy hitter, aka Vader, she used two sabers, and in that fight, every strike that Vader does, she is constantly being like pressed down.
Yeah.
And so I think she just kind of learns from that. It makes sense to really just size your opponent up and go like, all right, it's better to be structured and use one saber for this one, because I'm gonna need all of the force or like block stability that I can have.
Yeah. I think I'm really drawing a blank. I think there is one point she does use both sabers, and I think it's only in the tail end of the fight. Like that one moment that I mentioned, she has her leg propped up between like a rock and when he's going for an attack, and I think she does pull out her second saber to block like this.
Yeah.
As he's like coming straight, and I think that's like she only does it towards the end. I think it's more out of instinct than anything.
Yeah.
Like out of maybe desperation.
Well, if
yeah,
one
like,
stance isn't working out, you switch to the next one and see what happens.
It's true. And she's still ultimately defeated, but yeah, we get a really good fight there, and then finally, Shin shows up, and Ahsoka sees this, and immediately she's like, "What happened to Sabine?" You know.
Yep.
And then she uses the Force as she's blocking Balin's attack to knock out Shin, throws her up against one of the hinges, and Balin. This is when Balin gets pissed off.
Yeah.
I think he just says like. He's like, you shouldn't have done that. Like,
yeah.
Or he was like the class is like, big mistake, you know, like
big mistake coming here.
Yeah, and then that is when he just like, he really like, I think he has her propped up, and he's like really going, and she's just getting at this point fully just knocked around. Like, I mean, her saber is almost getting knocked out of her hand, and then Sabine shows up finally. And she's like, Sabine destroyed, like, I forgot, Ahsoka grabbed the orb at one point, and it, like, burns her hand, so it stops the connection. It rolls off to the side, she throws Shin, whatever. Sabine shows up, Ahsoka begs her to destroy it, she grabs it, and, like, and Ahsoka gets knocked off the cliff. And then we get this amazing scene. This is probably my favorite scene in the whole episode. Despite the very end scene of the episode, which we'll get into, is the conversation that Balin and Sabine have. This is just, to me, this is peak. And I was like, I to be honest, I was like really not expecting what was going to happen. Sabine has the star map at Blaster Point. And Balin puts his lightsaber away. Doesn't even like she shoots at him, and he just blocks effortlessly.
I think specifically when in that moment when she was shooting at him, I think I told you, I was like, yeah, that's not gonna work.
Yeah, like it was so effortless for him, you know, like just pinpoint accuracy deflections, and so he puts the saber away, and he immediately reaches out into the Force and reads her mind, and is like, Ezra, I know. There's I don't remember verbatim, but I know he acknowledges that she feels like Ezra is the only family that she has. Just kind of sad to think. I guess I don't know if it's maybe because of Hera's position in the rebellion. She's not as close around anymore, but it seems like Sabine is kind of on her own on Lothal. So it would make sense why she really is, especially living on this planet, which is basically a living representation of Ezra and what he did. The yearning for him to come back is even more so prevalent, and what's kind of put her in this depression. And he genuinely, like, in this moment, you know, it's when we were both watching, we both said, when Balin tells her, like, no harm will come of you, like, you know, we have a common goal, you can get Ezra back, and I can serve a greater good. Like, I promise you this, like, no, like, and then he just holds it out. He doesn't take it from her or anything. He gives her the choice. Yeah. And she's really hesitant. She's like, but ultimately her passion and emotion for wanting to see Ezra again, she gives it to him. Oh, dude, it is so good, you know? And this entire sequence, I did that not at one moment did I been like, what is Balin's angle? You know? Like, what is he really at? I was like, no, like, I believe him. Yeah. And proof is further shown right after when Shin, you mentioned this earlier, like that, we hear that audible noise when she drops the thing, and then you hear kind of like a like
iconic force choke noise.
It's so good. I got to thank Clone Wars for that audio cue because it's incredible. And then you're just like, wait, what's happening? I was like, is Balin choking her? No, Shin
it's Shin
is conscious, and she's pissed, right? And Balin's like, Shin, let go, put her down, like we were going to keep our promise. And you're like, Balin, from what we know, we don't know what his goal is, but what he thinks he's really doing the best thing possible, and he does not feel like a bad guy.
Yeah, like he genuinely feels like he genuinely appears to us that he thinks what he is doing is 100% right, and that it is a good thing to do, like morally good. He's like, yeah, it's a sacrifice that needs to be made. And actually, I will say, Shin has had nothing but unwavering loyalty towards Balin throughout this entire series, and Balin has to ask her twice to let go of Sabine. And I don't know what kind of connotations that has. But people are saying that, like, oh man, Shin's gonna be the one to take Balin out eventually. Like, it's almost as if like she might be jealous of Sabine, because now Sabine has joined Balin willingly, so she might feel like she's being replaced. We don't really know, but I just think it's interesting that she, for once, at least initially, does not listen to him. So that's just very interesting to me.
Yeah, from what we've seen, she has been nothing but loyal to him, and so I mean, I definitely think her anger was getting the better of her, not only with what Ahsoka did, but with she has been the constant thorn in her side, if you will, so maybe there's some of that coming out. But yeah, I think you're right that it may be some sort of, like, maybe she feels like she might be getting replaced or something like that.
You never know.
You don't know. It's hard to say. I could see Shin, it's hard to say once we figure out, like, I don't think even Shin knows what entirely the goal is. To me, it does not seem like Balin is interested in Thrawn. That's the thing, is I feel like that's Morgan's goal. To me, it feels like, because they're trying to go to this, Paradia place, right? They have not mentioned it in a couple episodes, but Morgan wants to get to Thrawn, Sabine wants to get to Ezra, but it seems like Balin is something else. And so, remember on a couple weeks ago, you were mentioning how Balin, Marok, so I guess it would be Skull, Hati, and Marok are all euphemisms for, like, wolves.
Yeah.
I never really thought about it like this, but Hati and Skull are the ones that chase the sun and the moon, right? But they're also intrinsically tied to Ragnarok, which is the ending. Yeah. And so it's like, when you think about it in that perspective, like, they are catalyst of Ragnarok, then you begin to think more, what does that mean for Balin and Shin? Their goal is like because they're almost like wanting to, like, usher in, like, a new age.
Yeah.
And it's like, how? Like, why? What does that mean?
It's just the best when the villain's goals and motives are just so ambiguous.
Right.
And I just don't waiting for the curtain to fall.
And I don't think Thrawn has anything to do with that. Like, he might, but I feel like Balin and Shin do not care about bringing back Thrawn. Like,
no, I think as far as Balin is concerned, Thrawn is not a goal. Thrawn is a consequence.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, they're trying to get there. But he doesn't seem to be interested in what Thrawn does. He's just like, yeah, that's something that's gonna happen, and it's gonna suck. But I gotta get there.
Gotta do what you gotta do for the greater good.
And I don't even think Shin understands either, because I mean, I think it was like episode 2 or something. They were on Cetos, and Shin basically asked, I don't know if she did specifically ask this, but she was basically asking questions about what the overall goal was, and
he just said power.
Yeah, he was just like power greater than you've ever known or something like that.
Yeah.
So, man, it's just so interesting. Like, I wonder what that means.
I don't know. And I personally can't wait, because we still have 4 episodes left. I guess we're in the tail end of the episode, but yes, very good speculation there on the Sabine and Balin and Shin and Morgan stuff. But so yeah, Ahsoka is, when she was taken out, she gets knocked off this cliff. We don't see what happens to her, but then Sabine is taken taken captive. I think they just handcuff her for safety precautions. But they go up, they take the shuttle to the hyperspace ring, Hera and Phoenix Squadron, they come in, they see like, oh man, that there's a big hyperspace ring. Huyang is able to reach out to Hera, finally gets contact, and he doesn't know what's going on with Ahsoka and Sabine at all. They see the hyperspace ring, they detect there's a huge surge in power. It goes off, right? And first of all, the sound design was incredible on this hyperspace. It sounded sick. It leaves a massive hyperspace trail as well. You can see it like a big blue trail, and rest in peace to the no-name X-wingers, because they, other than Hera and 2 of the X-wing pilots, one being Carson Teva, they all get destroyed. Like, it just completely, like, the momentum just and it's honestly like kind of horrific, like what happens. Like,
it sends off a shockwave.
Yeah, like it even like screws with Chopper, like his I guess whatever his like servos or whatever they are, like he just completely just is like.
So one of those, I forgot to mention, one of those X-wing pilots was actually Brendan Wayne, who was the guy that does most of the scenes of Din Djarin in the Mandalorian suit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so like that was a little cameo there, and we don't get to see if he is the one that died in the X-wing. All we know is just that Carson and then just some other X-wing pilot survived.
I think we know that the Rodian, and I think there was 5 people that came with them. I think, or maybe it was 4, but I know the Rodian, and I think there was a woman, and then there was another guy, and then Carson, and I think the Rodian and the other guy died. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But then I love this line. It's already showing that Jason has a little Force sensitivity in him, that he's immediately like, he's like, Mom, I've got a bad feeling. And to me, I don't know why, but this kid's delivery was so good to me, where I was like, the dread that's on his face, like you can tell it's not just like a visually what he saw, it's like something in his like chest, like it does not feel good. I think
as far as we know, the series has now taken a much darker turn. This definitely feels like the Empire Strikes Back moment, where things are not going well, and so I am just very excited to I really want to see Hera's reaction to Sabine being taken away. Yeah,
because now we have, I guess we'll get into the last scene here in a second, but from what we know, Huyang is on the surface. Marok is walking around fine as ever.
Marok went home.
He went, all right, my shift is over, guys. My job has been completed. He's on the surface. Ahsoka, we'll get to that in a second. And then Hera and Carson and one of the other pilots, they're out there. The map, I forgot to mention, Baylan destroys the map. He pulls out his lightsaber and melts the map, meaning they have no way to regain those coordinates whatsoever. They're out in hyperspace, or like the villains with Sabine are out in hyperspace. But then we get to possibly one of the coolest transitions in all of Star Wars.
Yeah, very cool transition.
We get a top-down shot of the hinge, and as it moves west, we see the waves crashing upon the cliffside, and then it transitions into a more ethereal type of pulses, and we see Ahsoka's arm, and we're like, what is this? We get to see her face, and she's unconscious. It zooms out, and we realize that Ahsoka is in, presumably, the world between worlds.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
Let's go.
That's what we're waiting for.
And so then, immediately when I saw this, I was like, how did she get here? Like, what happened? Because from what we saw, Baylan knocked her off this cliff. If it's anything like the Ezra Vader Ahsoka thing in Rebels, he reached out and grabbed Ahsoka. Yeah. Well, here's the kicker. Everybody knows it's been 5 days. I'm not gonna. It's like we hear, hey Snips, like I didn't think you'd be here so soon, and we get the reveal of Hayden Christensen in full Revenge of the Sith Anakin garb, with lightsaber,
Looking
with
good.
robotic hands, looking, in my opinion, very, very crisp. I want to talk more about the lore stuff before I get into the whole CG stuff, because like I've just seen a lot of discourse about that.
Yeah.
But like and then the episode, she's immediately like master, and it's really hopeful. But then the Vader theme starts to play,
Plays
and
the
it wraps
Imperial
the
March,
episode.
and then the episode ends.
And immediately, and anybody who's watching for the first time is just like mouth agape, just like it's like you're just like, what just happened, man? Like, what is going on?
What's happening? What's going on?
What's going on? Yeah, and it's like, dude, I don't know.
I don't know. Shooter or something.
All right, so Cole, what do you think's happening? Like,
oh wow. Okay, so yeah, I mean, as soon as you and I saw this episode, we immediately started talking about it.
yeah,
and I mean, okay, I don't think it's Anakin, because I mean, I told you my reasons specifically, but like I'm just gonna lay it out. If it was Anakin, I've thought that he would appear as like an ethereal force ghost.
Mm-hmm.
And one could argue, all right, well, he's in the world between worlds. He doesn't need to look ethereal, right?
Right.
But where are his cool, I died and went to heaven robes,
You're so right, though.
Yeah, it's, Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Anakin all went to like Heaven H&M, and they got those matching robes. And like that's like a membership thing. It's like they got
Right.
they got admitted to a country club, and it's like a bathroom that you get.
They're like, here you go.
And like you corrected me on this, because initially I was like, well, why does he have his scar? Why does he have the robotic arm? If he's in the afterlife, he wouldn't want to manifest as that stuff, right? But you did point out that Anakin did appear as a Force ghost in one of the comics, and he did have his scar, not the robotic hand, but he did have the scar. But still, that leaves room for the question of why the robotic hand. Does he want to?
And the saber.
Why does he have his lightsaber? And some people have said like, oh, that's Vader's saber. I think on closer inspection, if you increase like the contrast and the brightness on it a little bit, it definitely looks like Anakin's. I think it's just subject of the lighting in the room.
I agree.
But here's the thing. It would have played like a triumphant, heroic thing, but it played the Imperial March.
Like it fades to black or cuts to black on like a sinister motif of the Imperial March.
It's not good. And so here is my theory. And this one's wild. I've got some spoilers for the Clone Wars. If you have not seen the Clone Wars, go do that. Why are you watching Ahsoka? Just go just go watch the Clone Wars. I'm pretty sure it's season 3. But
intrinsically tied to the title of our podcast as well.
Yeah, quite literally. I think that this is potentially the son.
Okay.
And I think this for several reasons. One, it is said that the Mortis gods have basically dominion over the world between worlds. Mm-hmm. And that is further exemplified by seeing their like caricatures on the walls in Rebels. Mm-hmm. And as how the Force works, works in mysterious ways, even though all of them died in the Clone Wars, I don't think they like died. They basically just kind of went into a different plane, basically. Yeah. And we see that through the daughter manifesting herself into Morai. Right. And she mega died. Like her life force was, and I guess it just went away. And here's how the sun works, dude. We see.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, I need you to keep going. Keep going.
we see he's done this before. in the Clone Wars, he appeared to Anakin as Shmi.
Yes.
He has done this before, and like, you know, you can read minds. He showed Anakin the future. Like that guy is basically, they're basically omniscient. So they know everything. He would know exactly the kind of strings to pull. Like he immediately, what is it? Pathos? Is pathos emotion? He immediately applied to Ahsoka's pathos by saying, "Hey, Snips," you know, and like, yeah, that is an Anakin thing to say, but that's the son kind of thing to do. And also, in the first episode of Ahsoka, which someone pointed out that we did not know until, you know, this point, you can hear the son whispering in like one of the first scenes where Ahsoka,
is he the chosen one?
Yeah, of the son saying, "Is he the chosen one?" while Ahsoka is messing with the mechanisms on Arcana. It is, I just feel like the things that are happening here are not good. And the one final reason, it has been confirmed that Sam Witwer's work has done work in Ahsoka.
Yes.
He voiced the son in the Clone Wars. What better way to have him have a live action role, except for Starkiller, than reprise his role as the son in live action, which would be so cool. And I know that he would eat that up. So there you go. There you go.
Yeah. So, oh man, I'm really struggling right now because let me give context to both you and the listeners. So I saw a possible report or leak today in regards to what he is. And it feels, man, I want to tell you because it is now become my theory. It is a very good theory, but I run the risk of saying it and it becoming true and then inadvertently spoiling people, because I can't be like, oh, this is my theory now when this is like a report. It could just be complete BS. I don't know the validity of it, but I feel like it's a very legit thing, and it is in the vein of your theory, but it's a little different. The question is, I'm going to ask you first. Yeah. Do you want to know? And then secondly, I will give a preface to everyone that is listening. If they don't want to hear it, you can just end the episode now. But
if you are leaving now, we love you. Goodbye.
Yes, thank you for listening. Follow us on Instagram.
Nice plug at the end. So I'll ask this: what is the percentage of validity behind this source?
Listen, I don't know the source. Let me pull up the
source. I made it up.
Let me pull up the article real quick and see.
It's fiction.
But as soon as I saw it, I was like, even if this is complete BS, this makes a lot of sense. Where is it at? Okay. The credit is to this is a leaker on Twitter named My Time to Shine Hello.
Have they been known with leaking things correctly before?
I have no idea. I just saw this and I went, and someone that I followed, that I was like, okay, I feel like they have some pretty legit stuff. I've acknowledged them before. Diamond Figs on Instagram. Yeah. I'll say it's 50-50 shot, maybe. Okay. I feel like it is basically your theory, just slightly altered. In fact, it really, you might be nailing it on the head, and I might be interpreting it differently. The leak is not abundantly clear.
If I'm gonna be honest, so much of Star Wars has been ruined and spoiled for me time and time again.
I'll say that with this theory, if this is true, you are like 75% correct.
Okay. See, now that makes me curious about like where
It's a little bit more ambiguous than your theory, I would say, but I feel like it definitely is on the right track.
Yeah, I'm just like, now you got me thinking about like in what way could it be different, you know?
Just can I please tell you? It's
all right. Yeah.
I don't know the intricacies of it at all.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. The leak is just that Anakin is now serving the role as a new Mortis god, and he is watching over the world between worlds. So in a way, maybe he's not the son, but he is possibly the new father. Because remember, in the Clone Wars, the father was dying.
Yeah.
And he was looking for someone to take over for him. And he was gauging to see if Anakin was the chosen one, if he could control both the daughter and the son. The father is dead. The daughter is dead. The son, So in a way, I don't know the details of it. I think you could be right. This could be the son, or he could be. There may not be a daughter and is it the son or the brother? No, it's the son.
It's the son and the daughter.
I would always get it confused. Yeah, the son and the daughter, like, they might both be gone, and he might be serving the role of all three. Or my theory, and kind of in line with yours, instead of him being the son, he is now the new main Mortis god. He is looking for a new daughter and a new son to fill those roles. You remember that fan art of him with Ahsoka and Starkiller? Like, what if Ahsoka is going to be, with Morai's essence being in her, with the daughter's essence being in her, what if Anakin pulled her out to save her and is going to ask her to become maybe the new daughter?
Oh, man. That is just such a cool theory.
It teeters on the same line of yours, right? Where I'm like, maybe it is just straight up the son, or the son is still out there, because we didn't see the son die, but maybe, like, I don't know. But then you're just like, then the theory is that is all I know about that theory, is that he is just the new Mortis god watching over the world between worlds.
That would be absolutely wild, but I'd be okay with it.
And here's that. You remember that statement a while back where Dave Filoni was like, when Ahsoka speaks in Rise of Skywalker, he says, he's like, I don't know why that implies that Ahsoka is dead. That's not what that means. What if she's not dead? What if Anakin and Ahsoka are now these guardians of the Mortis, or not of Mortis, but of the world between worlds, and that's how they're able to speak to her?
Is this,
or to Rey? But
is this when Ahsoka becomes Ahsoka the White?
Maybe.
Because I know that Dave, like, intentionally, like, postponed or, like, pushed back that transformation. And let's be real, she fell just like Gandalf. I think
she has died. We don't know what happened. Remember, we think about Lord of the Rings. You've been on a Lord of the Rings thing, and you've been kind of inspiring me a little bit. Like, when Gandalf, quote, dies.
Yeah.
Yes, he falls this great death. He is Gandalf the Grey. We don't find out what happens to him until the next, quote, episode, the next installment. If Dave is really pulling the strings of, like, this Gandalf analogy, the same thing is being said, where it's like, actually, do we even really find out that Gandalf is Gandalf the White until Return of the King?
No, you find out in Two Towers.
Okay, I couldn't remember if it was at the end or...
It's just such long movies, it feels like a long time.
I was like, they were running together in my head. But yeah, so then it's like, we don't know what happened to Ahsoka. I'm like, what if, like, she really is dead? Or like, I don't know, man. I feel like Ahsoka, again, like we said very back in the beginning, the beginning of this episode, sorry, I'm stuttering over my words because I'm so excited right now, is... like, she has been through a lot. Like, she has literally died once, okay? She has, quote, we thought she died a second time. This is now the third time this has happened, right? But they've all been in this, like, very, like, the cosmic force scale of, like, deaths, where, like, that's why Morai is watching over her, and she has the daughter's life essence in her. And then she's pulled into the world between worlds. Like, what if that's like kind of connecting the two?
Man.
You know? Where she is now becoming, she is no longer just Ahsoka. Like, she's serving this grander cosmic force.
She's now the daughter, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
And we picked such a good time to make a podcast called Mortis FM.
Listen, what can I say? Maybe I'm the son.
Well, here's the thing. Like that also makes me think, like, for there to be a daughter, there must also be a son.
Right.
So, where's Starkiller at? You know,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Or like, if the son is still alive, is he still? Maybe this Anakin isn't the real Anakin. Maybe this is actually the son, and the real Anakin as a Force ghost will show up in the next one. Like in the next episode, it'll be like, "Get out of here, son."
I think one way or another we will have a true conversation between Ahsoka and Anakin at some point. Like, if this is not Anakin, we will see him at some point.
Right. And it also, this is why I still think your theory has a lot of validity to it, is like, yeah, he still has the robot hand and the lightsaber. What's up with that?
Yeah.
You know, if this really is Anakin, say Anakin is a new Mortis god, right? When he died and became a Force ghost and he found a way into the world between worlds, or however you want to describe it, like, it wouldn't make sense for him to have his saber in his metallic hand, so this could be a deception of the sun. Like,
yeah.
And we didn't see the sun just straight up die, so maybe he doesn't need a new sun, but maybe now that he's watching over the world between worlds, like, the sun is playing some tricks or whatever, but in actuality, like, Ahsoka, I don't know, man. It's some crazy stuff to think about.
And we also still haven't had our Clone Wars flashback that we know is going to happen.
Yeah, it's got to.
Now, here's the thing. This episode 5 is going to be big. Because it is, it's being screened in select theaters.
Yes.
Like, there is a reason why they're doing this, and it comes out in 2 days, man. We just have 2 days.
They have said that this is reports have said that this is the biggest episode of the show.
Oh man.
Which I'm like, bro, we still have 4 episodes left. I'm like, what all is happening, man? Like,
man, it would be so wild if we were able to get Ewan McGregor as Force Ghost Obi-Wan as well. Like if we just had full-on Force Ghost treatment.
Listen, I'm tired of pretending that I don't want it. Like, I just, like, people have been like, oh, it's so fan servicey. Like, the end of this episode, that's another thing complaint about, like, the Andor crowd. They're like, oh, you got to rely on Hayden to bring, and I'm like, dude, if you're gonna do it, it makes sense to do it in this. Like, yeah, I know we got him in Kenobi, but we barely got him as Anakin in Kenobi. He was mostly Vader, and it was awesome. It rocked to seeing him back in the suit. But, like, this is different, you know?
I think it is different. I mean, it's not like, it doesn't feel like Cameo Palooza. It doesn't feel like Mandalorian Season 2 this time around. I love you, Mando Season 2. I think that this is different because Ahsoka's character is so intrinsically connected to Anakin.
Absolutely.
That to have him not play a role in this would just be dumb. Like,
yes.
And also, like, I think we can finally talk about this. The discourse around the CG face.
Yes.
Real fast. I want to go ahead and state that I think it's dumb.
Yes.
Because, I mean, like, did I notice it? Yes. But it's fine. Because here's the thing. You guys complained when they didn't CG his face. And now you're complaining when they do CG his face. So it's a situation of, like, damned if they do, damned if they don't kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm of the mentality that, like, I hated that they did not de-age Ewan and Hayden even slightly in Kenobi.
Yeah.
Like, it was just weird to see them, like, in their, like, younger forms. Like, not even Revenge of the Sith. Like, they're in their pre-Attack of the Clones look. But they look like 40 or 50-year-old men, you know? I was like, so to be honest, and maybe it was just because I was so caught up in the moment, I didn't notice the CG when the end of the episode happened, and I was like, oh, he looks great. Like, people were like, oh, he looks like a doll. He looks like he has a baby face. And I'm like, is that a bad thing though? Because, like, in Revenge of the Sith, like, Hayden, as a person, Anakin was, I think, 23 years old. I believe Hayden, as an actor, was, like, only 24 or 25. You know?
Man, what am I doing?
Like, bro, why are we in Star Wars
what
right now?
am I doing?
Dave, hey, check my Instagram, Dave Filoni. I know you're listening.
Dave, we
look
wrote a story
drippy.
about Star Wars. It's really good. You should check it out.
Yeah, we actually killed off our characters, unlike you. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I love Dave Filoni. I'm not a Dave Filoni hater, but yeah, I think it's dumb. Like, I think he looks good, and I mean, depending on how they explain the story, like, man, maybe he is the son playing a trick. Like, I never, like, now that we've just kind of talked about this full-on thing, like, you talking about how the son did emulate, you know, different people in Mortis. That is a very interesting little tidbit, because it's like I never even thought about it in that perspective before. So like I'm staking claim here. We're combining our efforts as we do, as the brothers that we are. I believe this is the son. Okay, I think you're 100% right. I do not think this is Anakin. However, I think the show is making you think this is main Anakin, but it raises some questions. That Vader theme as well, people are like, don't read too much into it. It's to help people, like common audiences, recognize. I'm like, bro, people know who Anakin Skywalker is. Come on now.
Yeah.
I think Anakin as a Force ghost is in the world between worlds. I think he is watching over and maybe serving as a new Mortis god, and the son is also there, still alive and kicking. And I do think that Anakin will ask Ahsoka to become with the daughter's essence being in her for so long, for her to, you know, come serve this grander cosmic force of a role. And I think she's going to say no. She has to finish something first, and once she does, then she will come back.
Well, here's the thing. You might be onto something there, because Gandalf does the exact same thing. When Gandalf dies, he is supposed to die.
Mm-hmm.
But he is sent back to Middle-earth as Gandalf the White because he has a job to do. And when he finishes it, he's asked to stay, but he says no. Like, my time in Middle-earth is done, and he sails into the West. He leaves.
Yep.
So I think you're onto something there. I think she will, like, complete whatever this is, and then she's gonna go back and maybe become the daughter. Which, like, if that's true, Ahsoka has had the most wild story in the history of Star Wars.
Yeah, dude.
Like, it is
right.
at Revan proportions at this point.
Yeah, I'm listen. I'm not mad. Like, if there is, that's the thing is, like, Dave. Fine, if this is the case, right? And I'm also going to just go ahead and plant in my mind that all of this could be completely untrue and I'm completely wrong. But I'm part of me hopes that it's the case. Is like when the World Between Worlds even got first introduced, right? It created this, like, it could have been so bad, man.
Yeah.
It could have been catastrophic to the Star Wars universe, because it opens up the potential of possibly, like, time travel and, like, multiverses. And I do not want that in Star Wars. I don't want time travel. I don't want multiverses. I don't want any of that stuff. But I do love the idea of the Force being on this cosmic grand scale, and it's worked before. So when the World Between Worlds got introduced, I was like, that could have gone so poorly, but somehow it worked so well.
Yeah.
Like, they did it perfectly. Where, like, it was just, I was like, they nailed it. And that's how I really do, like, if this whole thing of, like, Dave saying, like, you know, I don't know why people think that, like, that means, like, Ahsoka is dead, right? That, like, you know, she is, like, by the time of Rise of Skywalker, people were like, oh my god, like, she's still alive? Like, how? If what he's really saying is that no, like, she didn't die, she is now ascended to this higher purpose in the Force, so she's not, quote, dead, like, that works for me.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Well, you know,
dude, I mean, ever since you mentioned this, like, now I've just got it spiraling in my mind. We could think about this as it being planned from the start. Because Ahsoka has the daughter's life essence in her. That is the only reason why she is alive. She is intrinsically connected, and that's the third time I said intrinsic in this. She is intrinsically connected to the daughter, aka Morai, because we always see Morai with her. And like, I mean, in like specific situations. Dude, I think we nailed it. And it could be completely just off. Like he's like actually, I'm from a multiverse where I killed Obi-Wan and I stepped into the world between worlds. And if that was true, I would be so upset. Do not introduce the multiverse into Star Wars, please, for the love of God. And you're right. The world between worlds, it is a tough thing to broach. Use it sparingly, because if you do it incorrectly, it could be catastrophic. So yes, you are right.
I do think this entire episode, Ahsoka will be going on some sort of journey in the world between worlds, even more than beyond this episode, possibly. Like, I don't know, and I do think that might be the only way she can get to wherever Sabine is at. I think just like you translated, like, I'm so glad you brought in that Lord of the Rings analogy with Gandalf, because if out of the two of us, you are definitely the more knowledgeable one. Like, I could totally see her being like, yes, I'll do it, but you have to let me go save them. Like, you have to let, and Anakin goes, okay.
He's like,
and he opens up a portal, and that portal takes her to Paradia, or a crucial moment. And I think that is where that is where it will click for me, or it's like, this really is Ahsoka's show, you know, because so far people have been like, oh, it's like too much like Rebel season 5, which isn't like, I think people took that Dave Filoni quote and just ran with it too much. Like, I don't like the show is called Ahsoka. I think this is the point where you're really going to be like, oh, I get why it's called Ahsoka now, because she like might turn into an actual Mortis god, you know, this god of the living force. Like, I don't know.
It's more like Clone Wars season 8 and Rebels season 5 meshed together. Because, really, like, it's a culmination of Ahsoka's story. If it doesn't end here, and I don't think it will, I think she will have a part to play in this, like, Avengers movie that they're doing.
That's what I was about to say, is like, that might be like, it might be the thing of like, we have to stop Thrawn, and then and then that will be probably not like the end of her story, but that's kind of when she will sail into the West and become what she's meant to be. I hope so. I really want, like, as much as I love Ahsoka, if that is how they end her character, I will be nothing but satisfied and happy.
I would be so fine with that.
I mean, will I bawl my eyes out when that happens? Because I've just had such a long legacy and just journey with watching this character from when she was a teenage girl to becoming possibly this otherworldly being. Yeah, I'm gonna be a wreck, but like, I will be happy because of it, you know.
Oh man,
I don't know, but then it makes you think, what if that shot in Rebels, okay, the very ending one, that isn't the end of, I know it's like, it might have been like a thing, but they redo that shot, and that Ahsoka showing up with the staff and the white is her in her Mortis God form after another Battle of Lothal, when Thrawn comes back and they finally beat Thrawn, and she's there, and she's like letting a Sabine, like, this, that is her sailing into the West moment. That is not them going to find Ezra. That's her going.
Oh man.
I don't know, man. I'm more Cole. I feel like we have unearthed so much, but at the same time, I'm so worried, because I'm like, what if this just ends up not happening at all? Like,
we gotta call this the tinfoil hat episode.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, man. I hope people who kept listening past the thing, but like, bro. Oh man.
I'm just saying, man, we say it to ourselves every time. I think if they had us in the writers' room for Star Wars, we would be fine. I think I could think of no job better for the both of us. I know there's a ton of Star Wars people out there that their dream is to do these Star Wars stories, but like, yeah, you know, you and I are
are some dreamers, and I just think that we have genuinely some like good ideas where we can bring nuance, but also like, you know, satisfaction, and there's a way to do both of that, in my opinion. So
Dave is like listening to this episode. He's like, "Oh man, I gotta write this down. This is good."
Yeah. Oh my god, I gotta trademark this episode.
Can we put a pause on Ahsoka episode 5 and reshoot everything real fast?
He's like, guys, like he calls Bob Iger. He's like, you have to pay them the money for the strike. By the way, I failed to mention this in the beginning of the episode. I've been wanting to do this. I think it is important to note that, and many creators, shout out to Star Wars Explained, even though he has way more of a following than me. We met one time back when I was 17, and he met you. It's same thing for you.
It's a really embarrassing picture of me.
But we're gonna post it on social media. I'm kidding. We're not doing that. But yeah, shout out to Alex and Molly. But they put on the beginning of every single one of their episodes, recognizing that the strikes are happening right now, and without any of it, without the writers, without the actors, all of the people that most have not been getting paid fairly, Ahsoka or none of Star Wars would exist. So
100%.
So it is important to note that while we are discussing all of this and our love for Star Wars, none of it would happen without the incredibly hardworking people like George Lucas, and all of those people were absolute pioneers, and that still goes the same today. And it sucks, honestly, that we're not able to the actors are not able to celebrate with us as fans while we watch this. It's really unfortunate, because I can only imagine, you know, they're doing their duty and standing in solidarity with everyone. But like, man, I'd love to see what everybody is thinking and the response that the show is getting. But anyway, this has been a very long and fruitful episode. Almost 2 hours this episode has been.
Yeah. And keep in mind, I'm just gonna say it. I have COVID. I'm tired. I feel sick, and I just want to go to bed. But I stayed here to talk Star Wars, and so just for that, will you guys just drop a comment, share this with somebody? Just say, these guys really pulled out all the stops for us, and talk for potentially an extra 30 minutes about a leak that I didn't want to listen to, but this episode was still really good.
I had nothing but a blast, and I'm glad that you were able to stick it through. Send Cole at And the Force is With Me on Instagram, or just on our Instagram at Mortis FM, some well wishes as he recovers. He has had nothing but struggles with COVID the past 3 years. It has beaten him down, but I've seen him rise up from it every time. So we're hoping that with rest and with medication, we will finally get more of a permanent comeback. So I would not be able to do this without him.
Oh, babe.
So please, send him some well wishes. He deserves it.
I will return. I will return. Hopefully, our next episode as Cole the White.
Yep. You're gonna die. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah. Really. I'm gonna get a little bit, kind of a little corny here, a little cheesy, but like, just Star Wars as a whole, it's just so important to me. It's just had such a tremendous impact on my life and my well-being, and given me the opportunity to meet such an amazing co-host, such as yourself. And I just think that it's these kinds of stories that bring people together. And, as Grayson said, I'm going to bring it back just for a second. It would not be possible without the writers and actors that make this possible. So really, take a step back from gatekeeping Andor from other Star Wars fans. Take a step back from hating the sequels. Take a step back from hating the prequels, the originals, if you're funky like that. And just appreciate a collaboration of creation. Mm-hmm. Because, man, I love Star Wars.
I love Star Wars. Beautifully said, my friend. I think that is the best way to end this episode. I will reiterate once again, you can follow us at Mortis FM on Instagram. That is where we keep up with socials and contact with everybody. We really appreciate it. You can please follow and rate whatever you're listening to this on. There should be an option. We're on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. You can follow me at Shradester8 on Instagram, and you can follow Cole again at And the Force is With Me. And with that being said, we will be back for episode 5, hopefully very soon. And that's all I got to say about that. May the Force be with you.
Always.